Welcome back to First Things First. There you are. Welcome to Eric Mangini, former NFL head coach.
All right, good to go. Don't do it.
Did you just crack your knuckles with a big handshake?
What am I supposed to do?
Can't leave you when a man's hand is in your face. You got to shake it. How are you? How are things?
He shakes your hand like he did Belichick after the game. Not real involved.
Barely making contact.
That's right.
All right, we're going to dive in and talk about the Steelers. They needed a fourth-quarter rally to beat the Colts last week in Indy. A week before that, they won a close one at Detroit, and earlier in the season, they lost in Chicago against the Bears. And worst of all, they barely held on to beat the Browns in Cleveland. Lucky for them, their Thursday night game against the Titans is in Pittsburgh. All right, Coach, let's talk about this. Why is playing at home such a big deal for these Steelers?
Well, I don't know if it really is a big deal for these Steelers.
Record-wise, it isn't.
Yeah, when you look at it, they're 5-1.
Yeah, it's really about how they're playing. They just play a better game at home, whether they win or lose.
Yeah, the season's a grind. So for whether it's a coach, a player, whoever it's a grind. And then Pittsburgh has some guys that are legitimate stars that can take over a game regardless of who they're playing against. So they can go into games sometimes and you think, okay, well, Ben's going to handle it this time or Le'Veon's going to handle it this time. And you almost get into this mental bye type mentality, thinking someone else is going to handle it. Now, the problem with that is you lose games you shouldn't lose. But even more importantly, you get into games that are way tougher than they should be.
Yes.
And now you're in the fourth quarter where typically you're running out the clock or you can take some of your starters out. They can't because they're in these close contests that never should have been that way. And I know you hate when I talk about focusing on the next game. And I know you love looking at the schedule, but this is the problem. When you sit there and say, okay, I'm going to save myself for New England next week or Indy or, Kansas City or whoever it is, and you forget about the team in front of you. Yeah. That's how you get into these situations.
That's why they almost lost in Indy.
I just want to make one thing clear. There's nothing you do that I hate, Coach. You're my guy.
Okay, well,
but go ahead.
Is that what, when we say, they're playing up to the competition and down to the competition, is that basically what you're talking about? Because it's an easy team, we'll get through them, so maybe our head's not completely in this space.
Yeah, and it happens to everybody. I really feel that Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick did a great job of coming in weekly and identifying a team's strengths. I remember when we ended up 14-2 and we're playing Jacksonville. I think they finished 2-14. When I left that morning meeting, I thought we were playing the 85 Bears when he set up on Wednesday because he identified so many things that they did well, and you always left with that sense of urgency, like we've got to handle this. And I remember another time we were playing Green Bay and their whole secondary was decimated. And the offensive coordinator at the time comes down and is like, hey, fellas, if you can hold them to 40, we should be okay. Yep. So we win the game, we lose the game 16-13. So we didn't score any points. And you get in that, you fall into those traps, and you cannot let that happen.
The key, I think, when we talk about the Steelers' home-road splits, is what we're really talking about is what you're keying on, which is road games against inferior teams. Like, they went to Kansas City this year, played really well, made the Chiefs look like a mediocre team. Since 2012, the Steelers have played 22 road games against teams below 500. They're 8-14 in those games, and they're -16 in the plus-minus. So they're not taking care of the football, as you saw in this game. Like, against a great team, do you take a shot early on to Martavis Bryant just to, I think, keep him happy? Like, no. Maybe
when the guy was at least 10 yards off at the snap of the ball. No. In a big game, you don't throw that.
Right, and so maybe they take more chances. Maybe they're not taking this seriously. Maybe they are looking ahead, whatever it is. But it is just crystal clear that this team, especially on the road, plays down to the level of its competition, and sometimes it bites them. This year it's only bit them once, that game against Chicago. But as you mentioned, could have bit them against Cleveland, could have bit them against Detroit, almost bit them last week against Indy. I mean, they're down 17-3 against Indy.
Yeah, I think the teams that when your coach is like a Mike Tomlin. I like Mike as a coach. What's his skill set? Skill set's based on defense, especially out of the defensive secondary, and his ability to be able to motivate men to be able to do beyond what they can do. Gather people up. He's a good gatherer of people with different backgrounds. His ability to be able to communicate is I believe, is second to none in how he communicates it. But when you have that type of style, there is a leveling device placed in the locker room by the veterans. All right, so the coach can be as fired as he wants to. I told Jenna, like sometimes on the show, I will be fired up, but most of the time I will be concentrating. I will be quiet because that's the way the business is done. And you need those veteran players, and they haven't had the stability. Ben turning the ball over. Also, a lot of their players are into their individual success. So you start seeing problems against teams that are inferior because you know why? They think great players against inferior teams, those are games that I get my stats. And when you start having all these little distractions, it pokes holes in the team. All right. So you don't play consistent. Pittsburgh is a defensive, fast, hard hitting, get after the quarterback team. That's what their history says. Recently, they are an offensive juggernaut that throws the ball all around, and it's hard to be physical. So they're a different team than the Pittsburgh Steelers that we're used to seeing. But your overall leadership, it helps you level the team on the road when it's not about being, am I amped up to play? No, I have the mindset. This is going to be a tough game, all right? And your veteran players are able to pull you through or to have consistency and really help the coaching staff get their message through to the players.
Coach, when home field advantage is such an issue as we move closer to the playoffs in the AFC, how important is it now for the three big teams that are out, the Steelers, the Chiefs, and the Patriots to win every game at this point? Because we're talking about these Steelers who are just almost a completely different team somehow when they're on the road than when they're at home.
Well, again, if I was with any of those teams, the last thing you'd be talking about is home field advantage. Because to me, that goes back to what Nick loves to do is, okay, if we win this many games, we're going to get home field. Don't even worry about that. And Pittsburgh's problem is sometimes thinking too far into the future. Just deal with what's in front of you, and all that stuff works out. Look, early on, the first year in New England, when we won the Super Bowl, we had to go through Pittsburgh. And we beat them. And so it can be a great thing for some teams, and for some teams it's just overrated. They need to focus on being consistent week in and week out and playing to their potential. That look, we see it all the time. They are explosive,
right,
but they're not consistently explosive, and they lay some eggs that they shouldn't lay.
And to think that playing in front of Steeler Nation is not an advantage. All right, they're supposed to have a significant better record playing there because they're great history and they got great fans, just like New England. So those great franchises playing at home, the numbers are going to be skewed. They're going to outweigh them playing.
Yeah, it's a hard place to play. It's loud. It's painful, but.
So just to recap, only focus on the game in front of you. And we didn't even mention they're playing the Tennessee Titans, the big graphic. That's
tomorrow.
Yep.
Big graphic.
Because today's Wednesday. Keep thinking today's Thursday. Coach, please don't leave.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't know why I just screamed.
He's not leaving.
It's okay. It's Sunday.